What do you think? Right. This is the bit. Sorry, before becoming an accountant, my degree was in maths, so this is the bit where I do magic tricks, and I prove to you that 50% and 70% are actually the same thing. There we go. When I say prove, as a mathematician, I can quite easily shoot holes in the argument in there. But look, the thing about 70% has obviously caused a few ripples of concern among students. And it's something that if we were to move all numbers away from it, we are not expecting students to be any stronger in their understanding and knowledge and ability next year than we expect them to be this year. All right? And again, if I were to move all numbers away from it and say that we've changed the rules of the game, we've changed the assessment process. We've given people on-screen assessment instead of paper-based assessment. We've given objective testing as opposed to subjective testing. Yeah. So there's other things that we've changed in terms of what is going to be covered in one exam. There's a different way of covering the syllabus and the learning outcomes in 2015 than we've got just now. So there's big changes in the way that the game is played. So there have to be differences in the way that that scoring takes place. Yeah, and it's like I mentioned already that my kids do a lot of tennis, and as they've grown up, they played on different sized courts. Right, so when they were 8 and under, they were playing on courts that probably aren't even as big as this room. And they play first to 10. Then they got a little bit older. The courts were a little bit bigger. The net was low though, and then they played, sort of 2 tie breaks to 7. And now they're slightly bigger again. They're playing on a bigger court, and it's sets up to 4, and then they're going to be sets up to 6, and then they're going to win Wimbledon, and I'll retire. And so they play a different game. They've got different scoring systems, and that's that's really the fundamental message in here is that. On that analogy, I'm not expecting them to be better at playing tennis matches. They just play a different match. So we score it differently. And now, with the exams, we're not expecting students to have to work harder or to become cleverer or anything like that. We're creating a different exam, therefore it gets you a different, it gets you different scoring. And so here's where the funny business comes in with the numbers, right? See if you can follow this one. Oh, this one. Right. So why do we have 50%? Now, of course, at the launch in February, those who were here in February might remember Noel, I think it was Noel that did the talk, Noel Tago, talking about 50% and airline pilots. Yeah? And saying, yes, if you spoke to your pilot, what did you get in your exam? 50%. Which bit did you pass? The bit about taking off. What about the remainder? So that was, so there was that. And there's a certain logic to the fact that pilots have to get 75% was skillfully overlooked. But that's the general story. It's not really, but it's an accepted thing that 50% gets you through an accountancy exam, and it's not just CIMA. I think most other accounting bodies have got something like that, particularly if it's paper-based exam. Now, I'll start this with, this is again go back to my maths and statistics background. Let's state a hypothesis. Let's say that we want people to be slightly better than half good enough, right? So when we send somebody for a job interview, or they get placed in a job, they're going to do things well more frequently than they do them badly. So 70% rather than 50%, right? So we'll start with that. And so that's reasonable, and other stuff can be developed. Okay, so that's what we want people to do. Now, we know, because we've written exams, haven't we? We've done practice exams and tests for our students. When you write a 3-hour paper-based exam, particularly if we look at things at operational and management level, where we don't have a choose 2 of 3 questions option, so there's in P2 there's 7 compulsory questions, 5, 10s, 2 25s. And we know that there's an element of where those questions come from. The 10 marks come from syllabus areas B and C, I think it is, and the 25 from A and D. I've got that the right way around. Okay, so with that sort of guidance in there, I know whenever I write an exam, there are topics I'm leaving out, right? And I think actually I'm overstating it here, that one exam will test 70% of the syllabus. Yeah, it could be between about 60. It would be a remarkably good exam, well-written exam, if it were to test 75–80% under the way that we write things. So let's just say that a paper-based exam tests 70%. Now, this is where the funny business comes in, because I'm going to say that, I've got a student who is proficient in 70% of syllabus learning outcomes. And I'm just going to say that that's a random selection of 70%. And the examiner has equally chosen a random selection of 70% of learning outcomes, but independently, obviously, of what the student has learnt. And it's that independence bit where we come in and we try and second guess what the examiner's doing and spot trends and reduce that. But anyway, that's the story, okay? We've got 2 random 70%. So if you put them together, a student who's 70% proficient, faced with a syllabus that is 70% selection, right, is going to have a score of 40. So we say 50% because we count in 5s or whatever. Yeah? So, the story that I've got here is that 50%, and those that are in the P pillar and business maths and so on, will know that I'm talking expected values and long-run averages and subject to variation, sitting by sitting, and all the rest of it. But it's a valid management accounting tool, and is in the long run, 50% reflects 70% competence. All right? And the factor that I really don't like when I think about this is that it depends on luck. Now, I've spent 20-something years teaching students, and what's the thing they ask on the last day of a revision course? What questions are coming up? Yeah. What are your tips for the exam? I've never liked doing it. And I've said, one time I was asked it, some students said, what about tips? Just like that, not politely around it. What about tips? And I just said, right, just leave them in the cup as you go out. but that's the thing, yeah. And of course, so you make a tip and you say, right, I think linear programming is due for an outing. So off they go and they spend a weekend practicing linear programming. Meanwhile, the examiner had different ideas. He's bored of linear programming, so it doesn't touch the exam, right? So that's horribly unlucky. Or on another time, of course, you've tipped linear programming and you've given a couple of practice questions, one of which was really like one in the exam, and the students think you're some kind of, like Nostradamus and aren't you the best tutor ever, Not the fact that you've slogged out week after week explaining every single learning, but you, on that one moment, you happen to blurt out linear programming. And it is, so I think obviously it can work in your favour and it can work against you. But, so here's where my illustration of this goes further forward. So, the same story. There's somebody who's proficient in 70% and the examiner's tested 70%. Now, in an extremely lucky situation, the 70% the student worked on happens to be the 70% that the examiner tested. suddenly 100%. You know, that student comes back and says, I'm 100%, I'm the best management accountant there ever was. And you as their tutor, you translate that and you say, I'm the best management accounting tutor there ever was. Isn't that fantastic? Yeah. But what we do know, it's a bit of luck. Yeah. And again, you know, a little bit of sums in here. I think I've got the right numbers on this one. I might not be right. But yeah, so the examiner might test 70%, including the 30 things that this student never tested. So the best they can score, 40 out of 70, is 57%. Yes, it's still a pass, right? So we're happy with that. It's still a pass, but it's becoming quite marginal. Yeah? Imagine these are two separate people. Yeah? And they work for the same organisation. You go into their manager, one says, I just got 100%, the other one says, I got 57%. Right? Who's going to get the bonus? Who's going to, yeah, it's not fair, is it? They did the same amount of work, and that's the range of scores that technically you can get if you don't make any mistakes in the exam whatsoever. All right? But where we're heading to with objective testing is that we will have all learning outcomes covered. There will be a question or two that relate to linear programming, just as there will be to do with medium-term decision-making, net present value, whatever, all the way through there. So, again, no mistakes made, you'll get 70%, reflecting your 70% proficiency. So that becomes fair. That's the message that's been going out right from the start. We've said objective testing gives us a fairer method of assessment. Here's the other extreme. This is the one that the employers particularly like. Okay, here's a student who couldn't be bothered to study the entire syllabus. Right now, you as an employer, do you want somebody coming in who isn't even going to work right up till lunchtime? Right? They're going to work up till just short of lunchtime and spend the afternoon on Candy Crush or Facebook or whatever. Right? I've never looked at Candy Crush. I don't pretend I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, just follow all the football scores, whatever it might be. Okay, now we know this is not a desirable employee, doesn't have the right attitude. But, again, the same story comes up. Examiner picks topic, just happens to pick everything that this guy has studied. 45 out of 70, I think, comes to 64%. So that, even with a margin of error, that student can do well. That student has done better than the second one on the previous slide. Right? Crazy. And then, yes, the other way that comes round is that 55%, or the 55% selected by the examiners is stuff the student didn't do, leaving only 25 that he did do, so the best he can do is 36. Again, that huge margin of error in there, when what we want to reflect, what we want to say to the employer is, this person worked 45%, so here's a 45% score. All right? So there's quite a lot that comes out of these three slides. You know, at the start, there's the expected value mathematical thing that says 50% on a paper-based exam reflects 70% proficiency. Yeah? So because we've changed to this level, this style of testing, then we should change from 50 to 70. But we've not asked the student to do anything extra to meet that target. Now it's quite a difficult message to get across, because the student sees the 70 and then might look at another accounting body or look at what we've got just now and say 50. What they might be doing as well is saying, well, hang on, when I did the certificate level at CIMA, I had to do 50%. Why has it got harder? And certificate is using objective testing, and professional is using objective testing. So that's the same game, right? Now, that is an issue that is being addressed, and in the long run, will be sorted out. In the certificate level, it's a 2-hour assessment against 90 minutes. There's actually a different, I won't go into boring with all the details of the test writing. Currently, there's a different approach to creating a certificate type test than what we're going to have at the professional. But it doesn't reconcile. When we review the certificate level, that is one of the factors that we'll be aligning more fairly. So, the long and the short of it is that if we just take this qualification, professional qualification, our message has been, and it continues to be, we are not asking you to become super accountants. We're not asking for extra work. We're not asking for added knowledge, added proficiency, or any other phrases that are in there. It is that change the assessment, change the marks, or the target. So 70% is the region that we're looking for. That's been released. That's the message that we're keeping with. But as it's one that we need to reinforce, and hopefully you can help us with that. All right. And then so within the objective testing, we're going to take a look. If we get into one now that I've got the right cables in, and just to be sure on this one. In the test that we deliver, we will make sure that all learning outcomes are tested, right? Again, I won't go through the full detail on the exam construction, but working with Pearson VUE, it's really opened a lot of eyes with people who have worked in exams for years, and just to get that advice and to get that expertise from a global organisation like Pearson VUE that operates in so many different sectors. We've learned a lot about exam formation. So this is just one of the things. By having short questions, obviously you can cover more topics. So we do get through all the learning outcomes. I think we've managed to get across that we've moved away from multiple choice. Of course, students who take the certificate level are already familiar with a variety of question styles. So they know that there's I don't think, I'm right saying certificate level doesn't have quite the variety that we'll be seeing at the professional. Selecting words from a list. So one thing is we don't have typed input on this, so we don't allow for typing errors to cause a problem. It's identifying the word in the list. It's on a drop down, or it's in a box where you can get your dragon to drop it. Number entry, well, that does allow for typing errors, but it still has a degree of variation allowed if there's a working that involves some rounding. If the answer is supposed to be 123, then it will accept between 120 and 125, or whatever reasonable rounding is allowed in there. Hot spotting, hot spotting is a type of multiple choice. Where on this graph is our business when you've got two variables? Instead of saying, is it in point A, B, C, D, or E, just says click the point in there, and there'll be a finite number of points that will accept the click and put a red cross on it. But actually, the rationale on this, coming from Pearson VUE, is saying, it's not just because technically we can do it, but it actually keeps students or young people's brains engaged more if they're doing a variety of different tasks. This is all, if you remember, at the launch, we did a piece on Generation Y, and looking at how Generation Y learns and the activities they're involved in, keeping them engaged in a variety of tasks. If you had a test of 60 multiple choice questions that would come up point maybe between question 18 and 20, where they'd start going, okay, more of the same, click, 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 and then, yeah. So this just keeps them engaged. The multiple answer ones that you may see, we'll take a look on the test in a moment. But the multiple answer ones, for me, they're the toughest ones that are in there. The ones where it says, which of the following statements are true? You've got 6 statements. You don't know whether one of them is true, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. That's the toughest. Yeah? And that's you'll see a lot more of those at the strategic level. Yeah? Where the that it becomes the analysis, it becomes the evaluation, the higher level verbs that are being applied to say, well, that statement, yeah, that statement, no. Yeah? And the tough thing for it is there might be 4 correct statements in the list. You correctly identify 3. Yeah? In a business, you'd say, well, there's this, and this. And then you might have a colleague beside you who says, oh, haven't you thought about that? And you could discuss it. In the exam, you've got to know it. Because if you only put 3 out of the 4, you get 0 marking. Yeah? So those are the tough ones, yeah? Which 3 of the following makes it slightly easier? Yeah? And down to multiple choice. Which one of the following 4 statements? Yeah? So there's a good variety, and there's a little bit more about that as well, which we'll see if I manage to get into the exam in a moment. Now, I should really qualify this statement about instant result and instant feedback, because again, on Pearson View's advice, we are reviewing this one. And I don't know if you're aware of other bodies that do objective testing, but CFA, Financial Analyst Board, they do objective testing, computer-based objective testing. They take 6 weeks to give the results to their students. Yeah? And the reason is that the psychometricians, they look at the behaviour of students in the exams as interpreted through performance question by question, linking, there's a little bit of correlation of this question to that question, the amount of time that they take in things, and they identify whether there are any issues that mean that the instant result of having scored or got 40 questions out of your 60 right, does that deserve a review? All right? So just like we have in the paper-based exams just now, we take a raw score, somebody marks the script and says, that one gets 43, and it goes into a pile. Somebody else gets 47, it goes into a pile. Then all the scripts and all the results and all the commentary comes back, and we have a review process that says we seem to have had a problem with part B of question 2 or something like that, which means that we really ought to sort of rescale the marks. Yeah? So there's something similar that is in the pipeline under Pearson View's advice, where at the very start of 2015 we probably won't have an instant result. There'll be a delay. Not a long delay, not 6 weeks by the CFA standards, but that's one that we will be advising on over the next 5-6 weeks on what's going to happen. So it'll be in plenty of time for 2015 that we'll know what's happening. And it shouldn't significantly change the timings that or should change the timings that you're planning for courses anyway. Yeah? The feedback that students will get is going to remain similar to what we've got in the practice test platform, which says by learning outcome, by lead learning outcomes, so the A, B, C, D, within a syllabus, we'll be saying whether there's been strong, medium strong, marginal performance in each learning outcome. So when a student has the result of an exam, they'll be able to look, and if they have to retake the exam, they'll know learning outcome A had a comfortable pass, but learning outcome B was a weak performance. Yeah. Likewise, if you passed the subject, then you'll have the information that say, you aced topic A, you aced topic B. C, though, was a little bit, a bit close, or it was actually a fail, but you were helped by A, B, and D. So that tells you, before you go on to take the case study, you really ought to just brush up on a couple of topics within syllabus C, syllabus area C. All right? So there will be that performance feedback that comes back on the objective tests. Yes?
Can I ask a question? You said all learning outcomes tested in all exams.
Yeah.
Now, the current system is that you're expected to know from P1. Whatever you've studied in P1, it's carried forward to P2. So is this going to be the same in this new syllabus, or
No.
is just level
There
by
is,
level?
once you have done the learning outcomes of P1, that's it
Over.
done. That is it done.
It's not going to be.
Yeah, it's not going to go up. Yeah. Yes, the argument is why retest. We've got a big syllabus. There's enough opportunity to test from within each topic. So why are we going to retest? Okay, that's absolutely clear. Okay, it doesn't rule. Let me just say qualify one thing. It doesn't rule out in a case study that, let's say at strategic level, if a student thinks it's going to be useful, let's say there's risks being mentioned. If a student thinks that an organisation will benefit from strengthening the cost control and variance analysis that it does, that's an operational topic, but they can bring that in.
Yeah, fair enough. Case study is fair enough, but
Objective testing, absolutely within the box. Within the box. Okay, now, if I've got a good following wind, I will be able to demonstrate. I've gone into the wrong one, but I will be able to demonstrate just a couple of features of the case, of the objective testing. And I'll come back and I'll look at the other one in a moment. So, let's see how long it takes me to get. Have people had a look at this on the platform yet? No? Yes? Some have, some haven't? Again, I would strongly urge people to do this. Just to click back to where I was. In CIMAglobal.com, if you go through, if you can see all this, if you go through students, 2015 syllabus, there is a section on Cactus exams, which is where I've clicked to. And you've got this for all of the subjects, including the gateway. If we can talk about that later if you like. And there is a bit, and just to warn you, because students will be advised to do this, hopefully a lot of them have done it, but there is a bit in here, I saw a second ago, you've got to create an account with Pearson VUE. And just to warn students, there is no commercial transaction in this at all. It takes you to a different site, it asks for a lot of information, it asks for passwords, mother's maiden names, name of your first pet, favourite colour, all sorts of stuff in it. One of the questions is, what would your ideal job be? Yeah? A management accountant is obviously the answer. And as it says, it takes approximately 5 minutes. It may be even a little bit longer than that, to be fair. But we've got to do that because it's worked out for everyone. The cheapest way to deliver practice exams is to use Pearson VUE's secure, I can't remember exactly what they call it, but they do have tests that people can log into remotely rather than going to a test centre. So we're using that platform to get in there. So I have created an account. So I didn't mean to do that. I just clicked the wrong button. Sign in. So I've created an account. I created a couple of accounts. I found out that username Peter Stewart had been taken. So, come on. So that's me. was taken. I was too frightened to log in as Charles Tilley, so I didn't do that. Now I've got one that's open that should speed things up. But yeah, HM the Queen, and it said, "What's your ideal job?" I put ruling the Commonwealth. So this is one. This is one that's open. So I'm missing a couple of the steps in there. But just to make it clear, when students are doing it, they go and they select an exam, and it goes through about 4 screens that make it look as though it talks about your basket, creating an order, talks about an invoice, but there's absolutely no transaction that comes out. You actually do receive an invoice. And this persona, HM the Queen, is linked to my home email address. So during July and August, my wife was getting all, we've got a shared email address, she was getting all these emails coming in, you have bought this, you have bought that. And given that it was in the run-up to our wedding anniversary, what's he getting me, what's he getting me? Another exam, darling. So anyway, it doesn't ask for card details, and it's maybe quite off-putting for people as they go through thinking, I've given all these details, I've created a password and it's asking about invoices and so on. Like it doesn't lead to anything. Now, what happens is you end up on a landing page. You start the exam. I've had a little mess around with this one before. So if you see up in the top right-hand corner, it says 66 minutes remaining. So at some point, I've spent 24 minutes in this exam already. Then I've logged off, and it's allowed me to come back in. So this, yes.
Does it allow you as a student to do that?
No. This is just in the practice.
Okay.
This is just in the practice one that's doing this. So you've got 90 minutes start to finish. When you walk out in the real exam, you're done. Yeah.
Okay, the next question, sorry, is if we as lecturers want to look at the practice questions, we need to create an account.
Yes.
There's in the CIMA website, there's no samples just preloaded. No.
No, it's because we can email you screenshots of this. So why this is open for 24 minutes was when I was on a telephone call last week, I went through this and was doing print screen with a Word document open and copying and pasting over into this. It wasn't a very interesting telephone conversation, it was a conference call. So it's easy enough to do once you've opened it. But really the important thing, partly for you, but definitely for the students, is to see how this is going to work in the exam. So you can see a clock counting down. You've got this bit that keeps the question count. You can see up on the top right there. I'm on question number 1, there are 60 in the exam. You've got this feature in here that if I'm stuck on something, I can yellow flag it, and then I can, at the end of the exam, I can come back and review it. And those are all features that are going to be in the exam. Likewise, I've got things I can pop out. Now I don't have this on any of my screen dumps that I've done, but if I think that this question requires the tables, I'm going to be able to haul out the tables, I can move them around, scroll up and down in there, do any cumulative or present value, and then see the question in the background. Yeah? So actually getting your hands dirty with the screen and the mouse is going to be very, very helpful. What do we think? Bonds. Yeah. So again, you do this, and in the exam it will be exactly this. Now, because I've gone all the way through the test, when you go through it first time, you won't see this review screen feature. You will have nothing down there. That only pops up when you've got to the end of question number 60. Okay? Now, one or two things that happen in there is that it doesn't matter. Now, if this is about exchange rates, and let's say I'm looking at this and yeah, I hate exchange rates. And I know that I need to spend time working this out. I know, or I will know, once I've looked through a practice test and another test and so on, I'll know that there are questions like question number 1, which I can answer in an instant. So I can go through, and this is exam technique. Should we have exam technique? Of course we can. I'm going to say to my students, look, take a scoop through, a quick run through, and look at this. Global harmonisation. Which of the following reflects the meaning of harmonisation? Combining all variations, imposing one set of rigid rules, setting bounds to the degree of variation allowed in each country. That sounds quite harmonious. Identify and apply one technically correct method in all countries. I think that's how long an F1 student who's come off one of your courses should take to answer that question. So there are some which you can answer quickly. I don't know about this one. Right, I should be able to do it. One thing that this test platform doesn't have, that the real exam will, and there's a tutorial that's available that will show you. I'll show you where the tutorial is at the end. Is up here. There will be a calculator, a pop-out calculator. Of course, you know that we've made the concession that we will have pocket calculators allowed in the exams. Yeah? So again, a student should be able to work this one out quite quickly and be able to put the figures in. And again, if I'm just going to write 6, S-I-X. No, I'm not. I wrote the S, and then it came up and said I put an invalid character. All right? All right. So now it's actually 6,000, right? Let's say that. So, and equal, if I think it's 6, comma, 0, 0, 0, the comma made that same thing come up. So a student, is I typed 0 in, sorry, O instead of 0. That's why that one came up. So a student is protected from this sort of clumsy mistakes that they might make. Yeah? The practice test allows them to see the difference. So here is a drag and drop. Whee! I reckon the advisory council advises. Now notice what's happened down in the box at the bottom. It left the word advises. So I could. So it's not, in a different question, we'll see that you can only use each word once. Okay? I have absolutely no idea. I think that reports to, and that reports to, right? So, I've no idea. I might want to review that one. I can put in a complete answer and flag it for review. Or I can just leave it incomplete. Yeah? So I can leave this one. So question number 6, I'm going to leave, I'll leave another one. All right, I'll click that as if I'd read it. All right? So we're going to be saying to students, hopefully we can say to students, you're going to run through on a quick blast and find the questions that you know the answers to. So it's a bit like what we do just now, don't we? We say, looking at a question, there are easy marks. If you're doing consolidation of financial statements, adding together the figures for inventory, I think that's one thing you do. Adding together the, what we call fixed assets nowadays, non-current assets. You add them together. And so there's some things that you do that are more straightforward than others. That's what we're doing here. Yeah? Here's, now this is the best illustration, I think, in all 9 subjects of this type of thing. There's 4 questions in a row here that are all to do with this company AB. As well as the tables and formula, which I don't think I need for this, there's an exhibit. And the exhibit is a trial balance with a whole load of notes. Now, initial reaction of a student is to think, oh my goodness, This is supposed to be objective test. It's supposed to be quick and easy. So the correct thing to do is to click past it for the time being. All right? Now, again, I've got drag and drop. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I just mentioned there the scratch pad. I'm going to leave that. I put numbers in there by mistake. I can't delete them. Yeah, I'll mention the scratch pad in a moment. So, look, I go through that. I think that's a massive question. There's no way I'm going to attempt that. Well, I know there's quick ones to do. Then I say, look, here's another one. That's the same company with the same trial balance. Okay, so that's given me an element of comfort that I can come back to this and wait until I'm less panicky. So that's something to advise students on. This multiple choice, little exercise, just that's that exercise. Same thing, so that's AB, and this is AB again with the same exhibit. So you have not yet, oh, this is another thing. There's a feature of the question. When you've got a question that goes below the bottom line of the screen, again, there's a safety net. It says, it said there, like, I have not yet viewed the entire screen. So in a different question, I might have been able to submit an answer. I might have been able to drag something there and drag something there. And then I want to move on. And I think, oh, hang on, there was more information. And that extra information might be vital. So it's telling me, read it carefully before going on. Now, just in case I don't come back to it, drag and drop in this case, you saw what happened that time. I think cost of sales is going to be 90.90. And that has now gone from the box. So unlike the advise reports to options, this you get to use. But there's 2 boxes to fill, and there's 6 to choose from. There's other ones where it's 3 boxes and 3 phrases. So there's a huge variety in these that you'll be able to show students. Okay? Now I've moved on from AB, and it works out as being a good move, because I've got another quick question. You know, as we try to do with objective testing, it's emphasising that it's not nasty tricking questions. Yeah, which is the following is not short-term. Treasury bill again, isn't it? Oh, treasury bill. My father-in-law was called Bill, and he used to work in the treasury, so that's it. All right. All right. So again, students can click through this. Here's one. Which 2 of the following problems? Now try and remember this. Question 13. I didn't have to put an answer in the previous one. I'm just going to do that and come back, just so that this stands out. Question 13. Which 2 of the following problems could result from exceeding the supplier's allowance trade terms? All right. Reduction in credit rating, I think, is one. I'm not sure what the second one is, or I accidentally forget to click a second one, and I move on to next. It doesn't tell me that my answer is incomplete. You notice that? All right, now we'll come back to this. I'm just going to put answers in around them without checking. So that was number 13. I'm making a note. Right. Click on a few. I'm not pretending I know how to answer F1. I just want to get it. Now, here's another thing that is a bit of a higher skill test with an objective, because this is which is the least likely reason. So that suggests to me that if I were to read these in detail, all 4 of them are unlikely reasons. But one of them, you know, I've got to try and prioritise. And you'll see at strategic level, there's more that are like this. Operational level, which this is, there's not many. But it's still, it's in there. Again, just a quick look on them. I don't know. Least likely to set deadlines so they can forecast their cash flows. Yeah, that looks unlikely. It could be that or the fourth. All right? So you've got to be able to reason as well as just know various things. What's this one? Which two of the following? All right, I'll just go through and click that. Oh, sorry, I'll do this one as a multiple choice one. Notice if, I don't think there's any reason why I would do this with this question. So just if I was looking at a question and said, which of the following is a reason? And first of all, I think the first one is a reason. Then I read down, and I also think that this third one is a reason. I click on the third one. You notice what happened up at one?
Yeah.
The little dot disappears, so it moves. So it doesn't allow you to put two answers in if it is a straightforward multiple choice question. All right? So again, there's not an alarm bell that goes out to say to the student, so you click the second one, because it's assuming that the student changed their mind. All right? So I suppose that's something to warn students about. If they're not clear as to whether there's one or two correct statements, just be very careful. Which of the following would not help? So again, it might be that you think two of those. Yeah? Right. I'm going to get at least one question right. Determined to do this. That looks like about 45. Right, I think probably looking at the range in here, let me just click through a few more. Just do this quickly. Formula given where it's needed. That's probably what, about 8 orders a year. Yeah, another one of our dragons. This one, again, the numbers can be recycled. I've no idea what I'm being asked. But you can see that there are some questions that can be done quickly, some that will take slightly longer, some that are going to be more challenging. All right? Now, we don't like talking about the difficulty of questions, because that question is just as difficult as this question until a student has studied F1. And this question might actually be easier, even though there's more words in it. It might be something that practiced on over and over. It might be much more fundamental to the syllabus and something that's repeated over and over than something that's in here. Okay, so, yeah? Competent jurisdiction.